So today is all about harvesting moringa here in the Arizona desert. Hi everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're here today on a really sunny, beautiful mid-November afternoon. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm going to say it's probably not even 80 degrees. So for those of you who are back east, I'm sorry, I mean it. I don't want to be there where you're at right now because it's cold. But it's why we have snowbirds and have to deal with extra traffic in the middle of winter. But in the end, it's a beautiful day. So one of the things that we're looking forward to, obviously we've got a lot of our fruit trees are going into dormancy. The moringa tree behind me, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is really not quite there yet. It should be. So normally by this time, moringa trees are losing their leaves completely, but we know it's coming. So we've got a few nights that have dipped down below 50 here, and this one's already starting to get some yellowing of a few of its leaves that we picked off earlier and fed to the chickens, but it's getting close. So one of the things that I'm going to try to do, if we haven't done it yet, is show you at the end of this video the pollinators. There's actually a huge monarch butterfly that is about a foot above my fingertip here, so I don't know whether you can make him out or not, but he's up there. He's got a bunch of his brothers and sisters and cousins all around me here on these different flowers, and just having a blast. It's so cool to see it. Just not something you would expect out here in the middle of the desert, because this is not their natural habitat, but we've created one for them. So it's awesome. Anyhow, I get excited when I see that stuff. So obviously what you see behind me is our moringa tree, really in full bloom. It's actually fruiting. We've got moringa pods here that are hanging all around the tree. So our pollinators are doing a great job still of pollinating those flowers, and they're still producing fruit. So it's doing a great job. But what we're actually here to talk about today is what we're doing now as we start to wind down the year. This is our fall harvest time, so we're getting a few things that are coming into harvest now, and the moringa tree is one of them. What we'll be doing this winter, and I may do a video. Well, first of all, I want to link our original video where we talked about the moringa tree, just kind of in general, so you get an idea of what this looked like. That was, I don't know, a month or two ago. But in that video, we talked a little bit about what a moringa tree is, how well it grows here. It does amazing. It's actually grown quite a bit since then, so it's still growing. It's probably pushing about 15 feet tall or so, and it's probably almost as wide from tip to tip. But what happens is this tree will go fully dormant if we get a few freezing temperatures, which we should, and our peach trees and apricots and plum trees and our apple trees, we're counting on that. So once we dip down into those, this one really struggles with that weather, and it'll start to drop all of its leaves, and it'll start to kind of die back, starting at the tips and then coming back down in towards the trunk. Now these will winter over here in Arizona, so we don't have a problem with that. They won't die all the way back. But what I will do is I will trim it back, because these trees get very top heavy. They grow so fast that they grow too fast for the root base, especially at this point in their lives. This tree is a year old. We put it in the ground a year ago, last fall. So, so you can see how fast it grows, and it will grow pretty much this size again next year, which for us is more than enough of the leaves than we can use. So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you real quick what we do as far as harvesting. We do want to harvest this, and we want to preserve it. So easiest thing for us to do, we want the leaves. That's kind of the main thing we're going for here. This we will use in our smoothies. We'll show you guys that here in a few minutes. But if Lori wants to squeeze in, what I'm going to show you guys is I'm going to show you how we harvest this. So, and when you're looking at your leaves, so we've got a few leaves here that are starting to yellow, just had one fall. But these branches, they're really not extremely strong. They come off pretty easy. So when we're coming into harvest, we usually start kind of down towards the bottom of the tree. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking for leaves that are nice and big, completely dark green. And then what you do, if Lori can hopefully get in here a little bit closer, what I'll do is I'll come up to the branch itself, and I'm not going to do the one with the flowers. I'm going to leave that, but this is a good branch right here. So all you do is just pop it off right at the trunk. So this would be what we're going to be harvesting today. So a few other things that I look for, I just look to make sure that I don't have any bug damage or anything else underneath here. Wrong time of year for aphids. That's a nice part about harvesting at this time of the year here in Arizona. We don't have aphid problems, generally speaking, because it's been so dry. It's still dry and warm, so we don't have any aphid problems. There's no aphids or anything on the back of this, so this is a good one. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to go through the tree, try not to disturb the monarch butterflies too much, and then starting from the bottom, we're going to harvest some moringa leaves, and we'll show you what we do next. Okay, so we just spent the last couple minutes harvesting some of the moringa leaves off of the tree. So what you see in front of me here is our harvest for today. So we just wanted to try to get enough so that we could actually fill our dehydrator, because dehydrating is the direction we're headed with this. So what we wanted to do is just show you the quick harvest and then show you kind of quickly how we go through the process of dehydrating. So first of all, I want to start with why dehydrating. So really what it narrows down to for us, a couple things. Number one, dehydrating is an easy way to store it. So obviously, these are not going to keep very long. They're greens, just like greens you would buy from the store, kale or anything else like that, spinach. So they're greens just like that. So they are perishable. They don't last very long once you take them off of the tree. So we need to have some way of storing them so that they're not perishable. So easiest way to do that with leaves is to go ahead and dry them. So we're going to use a dehydrator. So we're going to kind of walk you through the step-by-step process of how we do that. Second reason why we actually do the dehydration is greens. If you do a little bit of research, just do a Google search on greens and the best way to digest greens. One of the things that the human body and our digestive system struggles with is greens and hard fiber like this. So it just takes a long time. It's very hard for the body to digest and, more importantly, absorb the nutrients up out of your greens, which is one of the reasons why cows and other ruminants have multiple stomachs, because it goes into a stomach, starts to digest, mixes with a bunch of bacteria, gurgles over to the other side and starts chewing it again. They bring it back up, chew on it again, and really have to kind of grind that stuff down into these little bitty particles. So what we're essentially doing is we're doing that breakdown now. So you can do that through cooking when they're fresh like this, or of course dehydrating. So dehydrating will do the same thing. It'll break these big gigantic molecules down into a small molecule that'll be easier for us to digest and, more importantly, to absorb, because it really doesn't matter how much of this we eat. It's all based on how much your body can absorb out of the foods that you're eating. So that's kind of the two-pronged reason and two-pronged approach why we're doing what we're doing with the moringas. So one thing I know we've talked about before in our prior video, and you can do research on this as well, obviously the nutritional content in your foods, if you can keep them raw or as in a raw state as possible, you don't lose some of the enzymes and some of that activity, at least from what I understand, you don't. So the idea there as well is to keep the temperature pretty low. So in our dehydrator for dehydrating this, we're going to be setting it at about 95 degrees. So actually, our summer days here are warmer than that. And you can dry, if you live here in Arizona and you've got a moringa tree, you can easily dry this right outside. We could have done it just a few weeks ago when we got up into the 90s. So you can dry them outside, but we like a controlled environment of our dehydrator. So anyhow, what we're going to do is we're going to show you real quick how we process these and get them ready for our dehydrator. So what I have here, I got a pair of scissors. So we're going to use this to cut these into smaller pieces. I've got a bowl here for my discards. We'll talk about that in a second. And then of course I have my tray, which is where we're going to be doing the leaves themselves to get them dry. So what I do is take the moringa branch. Now the branches, if you do a little bit of research on branches, I've read some different things on the branches maybe not necessarily being the best thing for you, depending on who you are. Obviously they're extremely fibrous, and that's not what we're going for. We're not looking for this light green. I mean, I've got a white shirt on. If I take this and put it up against my shirt, you can see our logo is real green. This is even darker. So it's just a really, really dark green. And that's in the leaves, not the stems. So we want the leaves. So all we do is we just take, and Laura, you might need to squeeze in a little bit more for us here, but all we do is we just take and snip the branch at that rib right there so that we have basically all the leaves. And you can stack these in here. Doesn't have to be real pretty. They're going to be crumpled up into these little wrinkly things when it's all said and done. That's my discard, so that's trash. Well, it's not trash. It's compost. There's not a whole lot of things that we actually throw into the trash here on the farm, but So that's basically it. So we got them stacked in there pretty good. So we've got several trays that we're gonna do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut, and then we'll show you how this looks when we're done. Okay, so we're back. So Lori and I just went ahead and loaded all of these trays. So kind of get an idea, that's what we did to load the trays. A couple of them. I'm gonna go ahead and admit, mainly the ones that I did are a little heavier than the ones that Lori did. But obviously you wanna make sure that you get plenty of airflow through here, so we get it kind of even, but not too critical. I mean, these are leaves that are drying, so it's really not all that exciting. The dehydrator we're using is the Presto Dehydro food dehydrator. We got this from Walmart. I wanna say it was like 60 or 70 bucks. Not very expensive, but what we like about it, it has a timer, a digital timer, and a digital readout for the temperature. So in this case, we're using one of the lower settings. I think it goes down to about 85 or 90 degrees. We got it set for 95. Because of my loading practices, we decided to actually dry this a little longer than we normally would. So what we do is, what we have it set for 95 degrees, and we have it set for 14 hours. So I'll hit start in a second. We'll get this dehydrating, but just kind of wanted to show you this next step of loading this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to show you what it looks like once it comes out of here and the next step. Okay, so we're back, and actually we aren't technically following it in order, because what you just saw, we're actually dehydrating those now, because we're kind of doing this routine the next few days. We're going to try to harvest as much of the moringa as we can, so we have that all winter long. So we've actually got that batch dehydrating now. It'll dehydrate before we head to church in the morning. We'll be able to verify whether or not it's dry enough. So if we need to add a few hours, we can do that while we're gone. But ultimately what we wanted to do is we want to show you the next step. So once they've been in there and they're completely dry, now this is not dry. Unfortunately, this morning when we were prepping for the video, we forgot to keep this step. So we can't show you it exactly, but we're gonna kind of show you essentially what it looks like. So once that's dehydrated, they're gonna look just like this. So you got a bit of the stem left, and you got all the leaves that come out on these ribs. So once they're dry, they're obviously very, very brittle. So all we do is we just basically take the stem, and you just take your hand and you'll just slide your hand down, and it'll pull the leaves right off. And obviously when they're dry, they're done. So we'll leave those on the counter because I can be messy right now. So next thing you're gonna have is you're gonna have this right here, which is just a bunch of dry leaves. Nothing special. What obviously we're trying to do is get as much of these ribs, these stems out as we can. We only want the leaves, the dark, dark green leaves. Obviously they do lighten up quite a bit once they're dehydrated. So these, again, we dehydrated yesterday, again at 95 degrees. We did this batch for about 12 hours. So they're nice and dry and crispy, which is what you want. So this is your next step. So once you've taken them off the ribs, you're gonna have the leaves just like this. So now what you do with the leaves is kind of up to you as far as how you want to break these down. We did this batch a couple different ways. The first one, and the most simple way, would be a mortar and a pestle, or pestle. I think the T's silent, so I think it's a mortar and a pestle. Anyhow, you can take a mortar and a pestle. We got a really small one because we usually use this for herbs. About the only time we generally use this here on the farm. But you can just take this, put a small batch of this in there, grind it up a few times with the mortar and pestle, and you're going to get your powder. So that, obviously our mortar happens to be green, so it's kind of hard to see. But you have this beautiful emerald green powder that it turns into. So mortar and a pestle is one way to do it. Another way to do it, this kind of give you an idea of what we're using the powder for. This is a Ninja blender. It's a smoothie blender. We love our Ninja blender. It's a little less expensive than some of the other types of blenders you can get, but it's a really good blender. The smoothie blender, we stumbled upon that, I want to say it was a year or two ago. We first saw these and thought, hey, we like our Ninja. We need to start doing smoothies. So let's try this out. So we've had this for a year. The cups come in two different sizes. This is the smaller of the two. They work amazing, by the way, so I don't mind plugging it. I think we spent, I think it was less than $100, and we had a coupon at Dead Dot and Beyond, so I want to say it was like 70 bucks or 60 bucks, something like that. Anyhow, we use that every day. So we do juice in the morning, and then we do a smoothie every morning. So we use this daily, and it's holding up great. So Lori makes one, I make one, and it's done a fantastic job. We tried this out this morning with the powder. Same thing, pulse that a few times, and obviously you can do a bigger batch at a time. So that's another option. And then of course, a third option that you could do is you could use a coffee grinder, which we don't have.
Why don't we have one?
The reason we don't have one is because I broke it trying to process mesquite bean pods. So just a warning for all of you out there who have mesquite trees in your neighborhood and you want to mill your mesquite bean pods, don't use your coffee grinder. Not a good choice. It will absolutely break it. It'll break it really good or really bad. So we don't have a coffee grinder. Use your coffee grinder. I'm sure it will do great as well. So ultimately, once you're done, you got the powder. Now, obviously, powders are pretty shelf stable. So we're just going to have these in either Ziplocs or we'll have them in little Tupperware containers. So hopefully you learned something today and this was worth your time. If you have a moringa tree, this is a great way to utilize your moringa during the wintertime when you don't have fresh moringa off your tree. So hopefully it was beneficial for you. So this is Dwayne and Lori reminding you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.